Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now this bit is for the parents, guardians and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box, email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.
So morning everybody, we're just about to go live with this CEC broadcast. Keep using the live chat facility. We'll meet Marie in a moment for this benchmark, Gatsby Benchmark 1 Module 4. So good morning Marie. Good to see you.
Everyone.
Morning. Good morning. and welcome to this Careers and Enterprise Company webinar on Gatsby Benchmark 1 Module 4. Now this module will be based on presenting your program and developing an effective site on your website for careers. This broadcast is designed to take career leaders to reflect on the content of their careers program and how it can be presented effectively for different stakeholders.
Today's evaluation, Stuart.
Sorry, I was obviously reading from last week's. Apologies. So anyway, I'm gonna skip over that bit. I'm joined by Marie Jobson, who's the area education manager at the Careers Enterprise Company, and you'll be going through the broadcast with us and answering any questions you may have throughout the session. So Marie, as we've said throughout all of these broadcasts, you just want to pick up the context behind them, please.
Yeah. It's wonderful to see you all. It's brilliant to see some familiar names from other sessions popping up in the chat. So lovely to see you for the finale today. Thank you for sticking with us through our kind of teething issues around online delivery. But the engagement has been fantastic. So I really hope this final module of Benchmark 1 starts to kind of really pull everything together. So really excited for today.
Good stuff. And just to remind people, as you already have spotted on the website, you've got a live chat facility there for you to use during the course of this broadcast. So it's your chance to get any questions to Marie as she goes through the 4 parts of the presentation. We will be stopping in between each part, and there's 4 parts in total for you to reflect and ask any questions. So keep those questions coming in, and Marie will tackle those in between the gaps when we get a chance to look at what you're saying. And thank you for all your good mornings as well. It's great to see so many of you, as Marie said, tuning in, some regular faces. And if you've not done, if you just let us know where you're coming in from, which school, and whereabouts you are in the country, that would be fantastic. Okay, so I'm just going to invite Marie to provide us with the first section, which is the aims of this broadcast. Thanks, Marie.
By the end of this final module webinar, what you will be able to do is understand how to get feedback on your key interventions to effectively inform your programme, identify an appropriate evaluation process for your school or college, and understand how to use evaluation to continuously improve your careers programme. Before we get started, I wanted to just spend a little bit of time on the language in Benchmark 1 around evaluation and feedback. So the benchmark states that the programme should be regularly evaluated with feedback from students, parents, teachers and employers as part of the evaluation process. So what we're going to consider today is what feedback to seek, from who, how to use it, and what evaluation to seek, who does that evaluation, and how to use it to construct the right evaluation process for your school or college. So the best place to start is by asking ourselves this question, or these 2 questions. What is the purpose of evaluation, and what exactly should be evaluated and by who to meet this purpose? And it would be great to see some reactions in the chat to pick up on in the break so we can share thinking on this one. What we're going to try and do through this session is try and identify that sensible route through an evaluation process by trying to identify the necessary parts. I guess a basic response, if you like, to this question might be that continuous improvement to your careers programme relies on evaluation based on feedback from your key stakeholders. But as I say, it would be really good if you could share your thoughts, your thinking in the chat, and we'll pick up on it in the break. It is quite crucial to identify that although feedback and elements of evaluation may be collected from key stakeholders, the principal evaluation will be undertaken by you as a careers leader. That may be with support from a link governor or an enterprise advisor, but principally it will be undertaken by you as a careers leader. So let's consider then the difference between some quite key concepts. What is the difference between feedback, evaluating implementation, and evaluating impact of your programme? And again, I'm interested to pick up on your thoughts on this in the break. To get the thinking started, we can kind of maybe define feedback as feedback suggesting capturing reactions and feelings in order to inform a review as a basis for improvement. Evaluation is a bit more about making a judgment on information, including feedback, trends, and outcomes. You may want to consider separating out, as I've put in this slide here, evaluating the implementation, the delivery of your programme, separate to evaluating the impact of your programme. So we'll just spend a little bit of time kind of thinking about that. So feedback are those kind of reactions, but then thinking about evaluating implementation, which would allow you to review how interventions are delivered effectively, how your programme was delivered. Was it delivered as intended, for example? Did each student receive the opportunities or activities expected? Evaluating implementation may also involve considering if subject teachers, SLT, governors, parents, carers, were they engaged in the programme? And were key stakeholders, principally students, were they satisfied with the programme and the delivery? Did it meet their expectations and their needs? Thinking separately about evaluating impact, that would allow you to consider how your programme influences outcomes. And that could be student knowledge, skills and attitudes. And it could be other outcome measures such as destination data as well. So before we break this down further, I want to just stop here and reflect on a cycle of creating a strategic plan which informs a stable and progressive programme according to that vision and your key strategic objectives. So delivering a programme of activities which support students to meet key learning outcomes and milestones according to your overall vision. Then collect data about the implementation and the impact of that delivery. Moving on to evaluating the evidence collected and review and reflect on the vision and the strategic objectives and therefore the programme content going forward. So I'm going to pause there for a moment, but when we reconvene after a short break, what I want to look at is being a little bit more clear and unpicking the element of this cycle around collecting data. So we'll look at what could collect data mean.
Thanks so much for that recap of the past models, Marie, and looking at the breakdown of the language there as well. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the thoughts that have come through on the chat so far. We had a few in already that have come in from LV, Kendall and Claire. I know that's caught your eye. Do you want to just pick up on those for us, please, Marie?
I think, again, really good questions. As we move through the session, I think we should be able to support with the concern that LV Kendall has raised around questionnaires sometimes being a bit overwhelming. So although we'll look at a suggested template in the next section, we're going to move on to that kind of data collection. I think it is well worth that creativity. I know somebody's mentioned using student council, so that idea of a focus group that already exists and using those structures in schools. So we'll pick that up, but that's a really good idea, really good thinking.
Yeah, and coming back to that, LV's asked Claire, do you have student ambassadors, leaders? So again, we're seeing what we've seen before, where career leaders are helping each other, which is great to see.
Yeah. And I love that point that's just come through from Sharon. Obviously, we've referred to it quite a lot in the other sessions as well, but that making it meaningful checklist, whatever preparation that you can do before with students. I appreciate the time limitation that Sharon references, but particularly when we think of the thinking around benchmark 2, where things really become progressive, it should start to click a little bit more for students. So almost every session is preparation for the next one, so students don't feel that they're bouncing around from activity to activity with no kind of journey. So we've talked a little bit in module 2 and 3 about that kind of progressive element, which should support with that, especially where time is a pressure.
Brilliant, thank you, Marie. Just checking if anybody else is coming back on that first section. Like you say, Jenny has also mentioned about careers champions in the staff body, which students are familiar with. They're looking to introduce student career champions. That's a good idea.
Love that. Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, so I've got quite a bit to get on with. So if we'll move on to the next section. But thank you for your questions so far. Keep them coming in to Marie on the live chat. Marie will answer them at the end of this next part. So I'm going to ask Marie to talk about now how the event intervention levels can be captured and recorded. So over to you, Marie. Thank you very much.
So let's really think about the collecting data stage of that cycle. We're going to look at 3 elements of data collection. We're going to look at key event or initiative feedback. We're going to look at stakeholder evaluation of your programme, and we're going to look at outcomes as well. So the first element that we're going to consider is key event feedback. This is a really good opportunity, please, to share your current practice to support colleagues and really thinking about how can feedback at a key intervention or event level be easily captured, and most crucially, how can it be recorded in order to be evaluated? So please do kind of add your thoughts on this. How do you approach this? What good practice have you seen? Please do add that into the chat. So how do you capture that feedback on interventions and events? But more importantly, how can you make sure that that feedback is recorded to then support an evaluation process? Now, this list is by no means exhaustive, and I hope that there's more ideas popping into the chat than are on this screen at the moment. Your method for collecting feedback on key events and activity will really depend on the activity and your cohort. So the examples that we've got here are those kind of quick response answers, potentially as students leave an event. So emoji, post-it, quick response capture, and that question about what you're trying to get a reaction from would change based on the event. Was it of value? Did you develop teamwork? Things like that. A lot of colleagues use SurveyMonkey or similar tools to collect that data, maybe after the event. Also, it might be getting from whoever was involved in the event, because remember, this isn't just about getting student response. If you've had employers involved or staff involved, even kind of sharing this with with parents as well, it could be looking at that, what works well and even better with. That's the WWWEBW. So what works well, even better with. You might want that kind of reaction, or you might want kind of a longer questionnaire in order to capture it. But as I say, this list is not at all exhaustive. In terms of the questions to ask, as I said, it could be of students, it could be of teachers, could be of employers, could be of parents, carers. In the resource tab, there's a suggested template for capturing feedback. It does come with a warning, a health warning. Some of the methods that in the previous slide are about really short, sharp responses, and that might really suit particular cohorts. It might suit particularly time pressures, just to get that really instinctive response to an event or an activity. For example, an emoji chart as students leave an event. You may wish to use this template that's in the resource tab as it is. It is a questionnaire, or what you may choose to do is to lift and amend the questions to put it into another feedback collection format. So there are suggested questions and a template for all key stakeholders, so for students, teachers, employers, parents, carers. They're in the resource tab and they are available in the resource directory, but it's really crucial to think, once you've asked these questions, whether you do it using that template as it is, whether you do it on Flipchart, whether you get a SurveyMonkey, what's really crucial is to think not just when would you ask for it, but how would you capture them? How would you record to get a trend about a particular event or a series of events? So please do share your tracking suggestions and the processes that you use in the chat. Don't forget to use this feedback as a narrative, really thinking about to strengthen and support employer engagement. It's really good to close that loop if employers have been involved with something, either as part of a thank you and a response for attending, that students particularly valued, or students particularly felt that they developed skills. It's really important to close that loop with employers, either, as I say, in a thank you, or maybe when you're going out to ask them to support with future events, just to validate the impact that the events have on young people. And they love to hear that positive feedback when they're giving up their time. There is also functionality within Compass Plus to record activity notes. So once you've added an activity, there is an activity note function for each activity or each intervention. So this can be used to log a summary or key feedback information per event, and that then at a point of evaluation and reflection and review can be downloaded. As always with Compass Plus, there's been a lot of questions about Compass Plus as we've gone through these modules. Please do contact us at education@careersandenterprise.co.uk if we can support you with any onboarding queries. So that's thinking about feedback. So how you can capture it, but also starting to think about how you can record it. And I am really excited to see if any ideas have been shared as I've been talking. The next data collection that I want to kind of think about, remember there were 3 data collections to focus on. We've covered feedback. Now I really want to think about asking stakeholders to evaluate your programme. So this is a bit deeper than a reaction, than a feedback response. So we're going to consider how and when stakeholders can be asked to evaluate your programme. Again, this list is by no means exhaustive. I'm sure you've got more examples about how you could engage with stakeholders for them to evaluate your programme. So it could range from surveys, in SurveyMonkey, hard copy questionnaires that go out or attached to emails, but it could be as really specific as a dedicated review time, maybe a focus group with key businesses, with parents, with students. So it can range from questionnaires right through to focus groups. However you choose to collect this evaluation information, again, there must be thought given to how to collate the responses ready for you to evaluate to inform continuous improvement. So it is important to capture emerging key strengths, because these can then be used to inform your current state reviews that were looked at in Module 1. With the even better with, they might be things that you could include as an opportunity, or as even potentially as a threat, depending, or a weakness, depending on what comes back. So it is important to record key recommendations that stakeholders make to improve while you're starting to collate your evaluation information from stakeholders in a format that you can start to really think about the impact of your whole program. So again, the support with this, and you can choose to use these in the current state, or you could choose to just lift some of the concepts and some of the ideas. So what we've got in the resource tab and in the resource directory is evaluation for stakeholders to give you of your whole program at a holistic level. And there are examples, there are templates to use for students, teachers, employers, and parents and carers. And it's really important that you do think about if you would use these templates, first of all, but then how would you edit them? How would you use them to meet your needs about the implementation and the impact evaluation, collecting that information from stakeholders? So you could use them in the current format, or again, you might lift the questions and use them in a focus group, maybe once a year, and then as I say, as long as you're really mindful about where you're capturing that information to go with the feedback trends in order to evaluate. So before considering the final element of data collection, which is outcomes, I'm going to pause again just for reflection while we think about that feedback and the stakeholder evaluation. And let's see if there's any questions at this point.
Thank you, Marie, for going into the capturing, recording, event intervention levels. Now, I'm sure a few people have taken a lot from that. So let's have a look at the live chat. And I think you picked up on a couple of things while you were talking there, the corner of your eye, which you just want to pick up on now. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there was a comment, I think it's from Sue, that took me back to my early days as a careers leader, where, I'm getting the sense from people that people are in that same situation where you can invest a lot of time and not be smart about it around that feedback. So around each individual event, I would just really encourage you to think very carefully. I think Nick's point is absolutely hits the nail on the head. Don't saturate kind of students with keep asking, but also give yourselves a break as well. Think really carefully about feedback from, this is just about the individual events and key interventions. I've put that template in a questionnaire format, but actually I agree with some of the comments. I don't advocate that you do a questionnaire after every event or intervention, because what you need is feedback. You need that immediate reaction, and there's some brilliant kind of suggestions coming in. Thank you to Rachel and LV Kendall around these exit tickets, these short, sharp kind of reactions. And you want it kind of low admin. So all this, people are saying we don't have IT. This is about kind of really streamlining as a careers leader. What do you need? You just need a response, a reaction. So the template gives you potential questions to ask, but I don't really advocate that after every event you're putting yourself through the pain of asking for full cohorts. I mean, we've had somebody saying they got 5% cohort return. That's just not a good use of a time poor professional like a careers leader's time. So then we kind of looked at that evaluation of the programme, and that's a wee bit different. That kind of is worth the investment, but again, you need to think very carefully, does that have to be a whole cohort? Looking back to that comment before this section around the school council, is that a good place? I think somebody's put in about parents' evening. Is that a good place to get really qualitative evaluation of your whole programme from stakeholders? But again, I would query, does it have to be a whole cohort? Can it be a representation? So really it's about being kind to yourselves and being kind of smart with this one.
I can't remember there if you picked up on Natalie's as well. I know you mentioned Natalie earlier.
What was Natalie's point, Stuart?
Yeah, it was earlier on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Natalie's saying, how much evidence do we need to show? I think we've got to be able to show that the programme works and that you've got kind of that stakeholder voice that kind of suggests that. We are going to look towards the end of the module. In one of the last sections, I am going to cover how you can kind of track and prove your evaluation in terms of how do you churn it through into key narratives, key actions, and key changes. So hopefully that will be picked up, Natalie, as the session continues.
Yeah, and it's interesting what Nick says about observing the activity as well. I think there's something in that, isn't it? Doing the evaluation in the moment, so not waiting until it's finished. So is there maybe some tools that people have used to capture that whilst it'd be good to hear back from Nick how that might be done, and how what the record looks like as well. So if Nick could share that, and just worth mentioning, do you want to give a shout out for the email address to send any ideas to, Marie? Because I know you're keen to hear from people. There is an email address.
Yeah, it's been brilliant, Stuart, over the last couple of weeks. Just the inbox has been really lively with great ideas. So please do email education@careersandenterprise.co.uk with your kind of ideas and resources. Keep putting them in the chat as well. But I love that, if you've kind of really got a feeling that students are engaged, behaviour referrals are down or engagement is up, if you have got Compass Plus, put a little note in, however you're tracking a narrative from an event, but keep it really, really simple. And I love that idea of observation. I've spotted the thermometer. I love that. Really, really simple around that key intervention or key event, and maybe invest a little bit more time in getting that quality feedback around your whole programme from stakeholders. And then as we'll go through to Natalie's point, we'll talk about how then we can kind of pull it all together to show that we can apply it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Marie. Rachel and Kelly from CEC, thank you both for keeping the chats flowing and keeping those responses coming up. Marie couldn't do it without you. You guys are invaluable to this, so thank you for helping. And Rachel, you just about pipped Kelly with putting that email address on as well, so you win today's fastest finger first.
They're really competitive.
Honestly, there was seconds between them, so they really. And Rachel, Kelly, I'm just going to ask you if you could also, for people who may need to catch up on previous modules, there's 3 of us before this, if you could just put the link up for where people can watch those back as well. If you've missed them, they're all in one place with all the resources, including the slides that Marie is sharing today. Okay, I think we're good to move on. There's quite a few coming in still about what you've said, but if you're happy, we'll move on, Marie, to this next bit, which is destination collection outcomes. I'm looking at destination data, attainment, and skills, knowledge, and attitude. So it's a good section, this. So I'm going to let you present this bit, and we'll have a short break after this and take more of your questions. Thank you.
So the final element that we're going to look at today around collecting data as part of an evaluation process focuses on outcomes. And you can see I've kind of identified destination data obviously is key, but we can start also to think about any impact on attainment and progress. And also really crucially, linking back to that second module about learning outcomes, is thinking about what impact has the programme had on students' skills, knowledge, and attitudes. So when thinking about collecting data on outcomes, I want us to think about what questions would you need to ask about destination data? How would you interrogate that data set in order to start to kind of understand any impact? What questions might you want to ask about attainment or progress to think about outcome impact? But also, what questions might you want to ask about student skills, knowledge, and attitudes? So on the next few slides, there's quite a lot of information. So we are going to take a break not long after this, just to digest it and reflect on any questions. But the first one that we're going to look at is just some example questions to think about when you're thinking about destinations data as an outcome in order to move on to that, being able to evaluate impact. So have a look at these questions and then think, are there any other questions that you would ask? But also, are there any questions that you're maybe kind of not sure about? So these are some questions that you could ask yourself and start to kind of note responses to. So really kind of starting quite straightforward, what were the destinations of 11 and 13 leavers last year? Really important to think about that comparison between actual and intended. And what I don't want to do is to get distracted with the challenge of benchmark 3 at this point. This is about whatever destination data you've got to hand. So even if you haven't got that 3-year trend, even if we're just looking at November capture following a cohort leaving, so what proportion went on to one of their intended destinations? This one obviously depends on tracking systems and your kind of the destination data management, but then thinking about sustained destinations. And what does that mean, particularly around that proportion that have sustained, or even the destinations data? It could be about looking at that per vulnerable group as well. Are there any trends in there? And then what proportion went on to A levels, T levels, level 3, but then looking at it not just as a cohort, but you may want to overlay with specific cohorts as well, particularly linked to any strategic objectives that you'd shared. So they're just some suggestions. If you have any other questions that you use to interrogate your destination data, please do add them in the chat and add to this question bank. Thinking about attainment and progress, this isn't something that sits under the direct responsibility purely of a careers leader, but it could be worth just looking at attainment and progress data just to understand where careers sits within that and any potential impact. So some potential questions are just for your awareness really as a careers leader. What were the outcomes? Again, were there any distinct differences? And this links back to that module 1 where we thought about that whole school or college priority. So if there is a massive disparity between vulnerable groups and their attainment outcomes, it may be that you want to include some work around a strategic objective there. Really thinking about pupil premium, non-pupil premium, around average progress 8 score. How did it compare to other schools? What was the pass rate for A-levels again? Were there any gaps? This is really, really crucial. Also, what was the gender split in STEM subjects and how does that compare to last year? So you're looking for things in attainment that you could potentially influence and be part of the solution around, that you can add capacity for. This isn't by no way saying that a careers leader is responsible for Progress 8, but I think that context of understanding the key measures that a school kind of has or college is really crucial that the careers leader is aware of, even if it is just for context, but also looking for opportunities about where you can be part of the solution if there is a problem around gaps, etc. Particularly around STEM, if you've really invested in one of your strategic objectives was to increase the number of girls going into STEM, for example, you really then need to know, did that have an impact in option choices, in destinations, and also in what people choose post-18 maybe. Then thinking about student knowledge, skills and attitudes. So key skills that you might want to ask yourself to interrogate the data again. How well were learning outcomes achieved within the career programme? So obviously we talked in module 2 about setting those learning outcomes. How can you then measure that? What were the career management skills, knowledge and attitudes of year 11 and 13 leavers, particularly if there were things crucially within your vision, within your strategic objectives, you really need to look at whether there is evidence of that impact. How had it changed over time, as well as that snapshot? In terms of the future, the student knowledge, skills and attitudes, if you haven't yet seen the Future Skills survey, it is on the Careers and Enterprise Company website. We'll put the skills, the Future Skills link in the chat, but it's also in the resource tab. But you may want to consider how to use this tool to collect that data on student knowledge, skills and attitudes. So the Future Skills tool focuses on measuring skills, and skills do take time to shift in a long-lasting way. So we spent quite a lot of time on this in module 2. And it is really advised that you use this tool no more than once a year with Key Stage 4 or Key Stage 5 students. So it's not really designed to be used to measure the impact of one particular event. It really is advised that you only really use it about once a year. So the Future Skills can support with looking at skills movement and skills development, which could be particularly crucial, as I say, if you've identified those as priorities within strategic objectives. So we've considered collecting the following data to use within an evaluation process. We've considered feedback about key events and initiatives. We've considered stakeholder evaluation of your whole programme, and we've also looked at outcome data. So before we move on from what to do with all of that data in terms of the evaluation process, let's pause here for a moment just for questions.
Thank you for that, Marie. And I'm sure a lot of people will have found those question examples, very helpful. We've also the evaluation method for looking at outcomes and their impacts. So there's a few things that have come through on the chat. Thank you very much for those who have left questions. It's great to see you engaging with the chat, as well as Rachel and Kelly as well have been leaving links, which is brilliant. Is there anything you picked up on those bits? I know the GDPR question came up, as it often does in these sessions. Do you want to tackle that one first?
Yeah, I think the question about colleges is a really good one. I think the GDPR information sharing is a challenge. I think it just really depends. We referenced it in one of the previous modules. There's a really good resource in the resource directory under benchmark 3 about a process that a school in the Northwest has developed with their local FE colleges. And it really does depend on that buy-in from the colleges, but it's the focus obviously in GDPR is getting that consent from students, so that can either be done embedded within year 11 processes, or we were talking the other day about an FE college who includes that permission to share back with school on their application form. So if you want kind of that belt and braces approach, it can be done at school, but then just a follow-up to see if we can catch any more students to give that permission as they apply to college. But I think the focus has really got to be about securing the permissions, as well as then ensuring that the relationships are there with the colleges to share that information.
Great. Jackie's put no issue with GDPR, have mutual agreements to enable destination information can be gained. Students seem to be happy for us to continue to have information on their pathways.
A lot does come down to relationships, doesn't it, and kind of ensuring that those relationships are there with local colleges and training providers, etc.
You see the comment from Lorna as well. Thanks, Lorna. Before any event or super learning day with a careers focus, I do a CPD session with form tutors who will be involved in the day. That way I can ensure staff understand the context of the event, expected outcomes, and why we will evaluate the session. I also ask students if they think the staff have enjoyed the day. It presents interesting responses. Lorna, you're going to have to tell us what those interesting responses are. I can't leave it like that.
I like that. It really encourages that participation. And in terms of the CPD, that's brilliant practice to do that beforehand. But also during sessions, it's worth engaging with staff and getting them to take part as part of their CPD as well, as long as supervision and ratio, etc. is kind of covered. But I love that. Really good practice beforehand.
Can you record permission on Compass Plus? It's a good question, I guess.
Yes, you can. You can track whether a student is given that permission for their data to be shared. There's a function for that.
I'm glad you knew the answer to that, Marie. We hadn't prepped that one, so I'm glad you knew. But Kelly and Rachel are there, obviously, to provide links, and you've left a few links for destination data procedure. Kelly's left the PDF, as mentioned by Marie. There you go. And obviously, as well, a few people mentioned Skills Builder. So the website for that is on the chat as well.
It's a good question just come in from Laura about the data sharing agreement. I'm not sure what's in the appendices of the resources on benchmark 3, but I think that would be an interesting one if anyone's got any to share. But we can certainly look, if you drop us a line at the education inbox, we can see if we can connect with a template or good practice for that one.
Yeah. And that was education@careersandenterprise.co.uk. It was mentioned earlier on the chat. If you want to scroll up, you'll see it. Good place to send in any of your ideas, best practice that you like to share. Okay, so conscious of time, I want to try and get your last presentation if you're ready. This is the fourth and final part of your presentation, where you'll be showing us how to evaluate the evidence.
This is the exciting bit.
Yes, this is what we've all been waiting for. But this is the final part of Module 4, and this concludes the whole of the presentations that you've been given. And just to remind people, All of this is available on demand on the links that Rachel and Kelly have provided, but I'm sure they won't mind doing that again. So we're going to let you do this final bit, if you could, Marie, and this is evaluating the evidence. Thanks, Marie.
So let's move on to evaluating the evidence. So this is about capturing your expertise as a careers leader to evaluate the implementation and delivery, but also the impact of a careers programme. So we've thought about data collection as covering feedback, evaluation information from students, parents, carers, employers and staff, and we've thought about outcome data. But consideration does need to be given, as I've said, I've kept coming back to this all the way through. How do you collate all this data so that you can evaluate it? So there is a suggested template available with key prompt questions relating to the intent, the implementation, and the delivery of your programme to allow you to apply your expertise as a careers leader to evaluate all the relevant data that we've talked about. And again, this is purely a structure, a suggestion. You may want to adapt this tool. It is available in the resource tab and through the resource directory on the Careers and Enterprise Company website. So this is really just a bit of a tool or a template to collate all of those things that we've been talking about through this presentation. Once you've kind of gone through that process of really thinking about what does each data set tell you, whether it's about feedback, whether it's stakeholder evaluation, whether it's outcome data, then this allows you to start to review and reflect to then kickstart the process pretty much where we began in terms of reassessing the vision and the key strategic objectives to inform the delivery and content of your programme. So please share how you keep a track on key evidence, key actions needed in order to ensure that continuous improvement of your programme to really support those positive education and employment outcomes for students. At this point, there is one final template. I hope you're not getting too overwhelmed with all these templates and resources, but each template, I'm just going to flick back a slide, each template fits with a different element of this cycle. So, and right up to this one, around this review and reflect. Each one can be amended and used exactly as you see fit. So right through this, these modules, what we've had at each point, in terms of the careers plan and programme, there was a guidance document there that you can use as you see fit. In the delivery programme of activities, we had the guidance document on building a strategic programme. Then today, what we've covered around collecting data are some templates for capturing feedback, for capturing stakeholder evaluation. Then we've got the opportunity to then start evaluating that evidence and just some prompt questions and a template and a format for you to capture your expertise and your own analysis of that data. So the final template is around this review and reflect, and it really starts to then feed back in to that first resource that we did way back in module 1, which is around the vision, strategic objectives for your strategic plan. So the final template to consider, and again, please use this as you see fit, is around capturing your evaluation, ideally on an annual basis. The annual review of careers programme checklist helps around checking your statutory compliance, but it also just kind of reminds you, ensure that feedback, stakeholder evaluation, that outcomes have been considered and that they are informing continuous improvement to your programme. And a checklist like this might be really, really good to sit down with your enterprise advisor, Link Governor, Link SLT or SLT colleagues, and go through that with them. So as I say, this is almost kind of a full circle, because what comes out of this in terms of your key actions, but your key evidence, it might prompt a review of your vision. It might prompt a review of your strategic objectives. It certainly will inform your current state and strengthen that, because it will be absolutely supported by evidence. And it may have some influence on the learning outcomes that you set for young people. One thing that this absolutely highlights here is that this absolutely suggests that the work of a careers leader is absolutely never done. It very much is in that absolute cycle of continuous improvement, always with that really crystal clear focus on the outcomes for young people. So this kind of brings the module series to an end. Before closing and picking up any final queries, I'm just going to once again run through the resource and ongoing support that you can access at any point of your career leader journey. So there are some key CEC resources that are available on our website. There are the school college roadmaps, toolkits, including SEND. There's also a recent guide for governors, a really recent updated guide for head teachers, and a key resource is also the EIF guide for careers leaders and school leaders. As you know, this webinar, along with the other three, has been based on content developed by Teach First, and those free online modules in careers leadership are really ideal for careers leaders as a starting point, but also for anybody else in your school or your network or college who is supporting you around careers. So that could be an enterprise advisor, it could be a governor, it could be SLT colleagues. It is really an excellent introduction to the concept of careers leadership. And really crucially, as we reach the end of this module series, if you've really kick-started some thinking here and you're at a point where you would like to commit to that face-to-face training, which is available up to level 6 or 7, although non-accredited options are available, please do visit the Careers and Enterprise Company website and register your interest in the funded training. It's already been delivered to over 1,300 careers leaders, and feedback from this course absolutely confirms the transformative impact it can have on careers leadership and ultimately on outcomes for your students.
Thank you for that, Marie. Thanks so much for showing us how to evaluate the evidence of delivering and the impact it can have as well. So I'm sure this will prompt some more questions coming in. And just while we're thinking about where all these resources are, you can catch up on all the modules. This is, like I say, that was the last part of module 4, but the previous 3 are all available on the Careers Enterprise Company website. And I'm sure either Kelly or Rachel won't mind putting up the link again for those, so you can go back if you've missed any. And sorry you were late, Vicky, getting here. So you had car problems, but good for you to catch in. If you have missed it, don't worry. We're doing this again tomorrow at 4:30, where you'll be able to watch this presentation again with Marie, and the live chat will be available as well for you to ask any questions. So if you wanted to do that, Vicky, you can join us again tomorrow at 4:30. Okay, Marie, is there anything that caught your eye during that session? There's a few things you were potentially going to pick up on.
Yeah, really good call from Laurie T around the I am conscious there's a lot of kind of ideas there about how you can capture that evaluation. So not just capture feedback, capture evaluation, but also then map, pulling it all together. So I think that's a really good idea about labelling the model and putting which templates link to which bit, but also being a bit more explicit on the templates as well about where in the cycle that fits, because it's just such a complicated, it is that process bit, but I do think the most exciting bit is that expertise of you as the careers leader really kind of sifting through it and kind of thinking, right, what are the key things about implementation that worked, that didn't work? What are the key things about impact to celebrate? What are the key things about impact that maybe need tightening up? And then to be able to show it as you're recreating your strategic plan going forward for the following academic year, I think is really powerful. And I hope that answers Natalie's question from before, to really show that process to an EA, to a governor, to Ofsted, to SLT, that you're really being robust as a professional, kind of looking at your programme, looking at your plan and the impact and outcomes for young people. So
thanks, Marie. LV's just put, really useful to reflect on benchmark 1. I now feel the need to ensure all careers education is more meaningful and the programme needs a review. So I guess that's why you did this in the first place, for people to actually look at it again. Good. So great feedback.
It's brilliant to see the comments about the career leader training as well. Please do register on the website for that. We're hoping to go live in the next couple of weeks with places, but if you're registered, it'll be a bit kind of, we're hoping it's smooth for everybody, but it'll be a bit more kind of direct for you. So if you are interested in the face-to-face training, it's available as I've said, non-accredited, level 6 and level 7. You can see, I think somebody's put, I've only got 2 assignments to do. The assignments are, it's hard work. It's a really big decision to make, but absolutely worth it as a free offer with the £1,000 bursary attached.
Great. Okay, we're almost out of time, sadly. That flew by today. I can't believe that was an hour. We got so much done though, and thanks, Marie, for that. Is there any last minute questions? Get them to Marie now about this module 4.
I'm just looking at the question from Jules. I think each careers leader can only apply for the funding from us once from the face-to-face. So if you've already done the face-to-face non-accredited, unfortunately there wouldn't be funding to then do an accredited version with us. So it really is worth looking. Please keep an eye on our website in the next couple of weeks. There will be a comparison guide just to give you that overview about the difference between a non-accredited, accredited, the regional offers and things like that. So
okay, and it's just worth mentioning, I've just put the link up, or the guys have for me, thank you, at Learn Live, to a surgery session we're running on Friday. So we've got the repeat of this tomorrow at 4:30 with Marie on the live chat, but then we're going to do a surgery session. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that's going to involve, Marie? And that's Friday at 11, and I've put the link up there where people can register for that.
Again, it's a new thing for us completely, but when we kind of had the idea for these sessions, what we really wanted was a chance to address any kind of those thornier, bigger issues that came up. So what we have done is kind of collected already key questions that have come up over the last 4 weeks, and we'll be doing some kind of thematic responses, but there'll be the same opportunity like there is today with the live chat. So myself, Rachel, Kelly, I think Rachel might even be on the camera on Friday, I'm not sure, but we'll be there answering live questions as well. So we'll pick up those kind of bigger issues that have come up, but there will be the opportunity to ask anything once you've had a chance to kind of think about the whole thing, right from the plan to the programme to presenting it to then evaluating it. Any other questions? It'll be brilliant to see you on Friday.
Yeah, and Rachel's put the link as well. You can also register for the surgery via SurveyMonkey as well. So you've got a couple of options there to get involved on Friday. Rachel's put, why has Rachel put, I don't know. I don't know, have you fell over, Rachel? Are you okay?
Because I said she might be on camera.
Oh, because she's on the camera. Yeah, we're going to finally hopefully see Rachel in the flesh, not just on live chat. We'll never know. We'll see. Don't want to put you on the spot, Rachel. Louise just said, thank you, Jules. It's a lot of hard work, but I'm enjoying, so that is the main thing. That's all you can do. Enjoy it. And
yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Marie, it's been great to do these presentations with you. That's number 4 done and dusted of this series of 4. Again, we'll do this tomorrow at 4:30. And as I mentioned, the resources are all available on the Careers Enterprise Company website as well, including the slide deck that Marie went through today. If you have any further questions, please keep them coming up. We'll keep the live chat in place so people can continue to leave their questions. That stays open for the foreseeable. And just want to leave this with Sharon saying, thank you for a brilliant series of modules. So glad I joined. Thank you to everyone. That's from Sharon.
Oh, it's fab. Thank you.
And thank you, Marie, for getting us through these last 4 hours of modules. It's been brilliant. And I hope that people have managed to take something away from what you've been saying to them as well. And thanks for your support on the live chat. And also thank you to Rachel and Kelly as well for all the links that you've been sharing over the last 4 weeks.
I will be asking one of my favourite questions is what's your favourite benchmark? So I might ask that on Friday. It's one of my favourite questions to ask anybody in life.
So
what is your favourite benchmark?
Okay, so let's start that question now. What is your favourite benchmark, everybody? For those people who've stayed beyond the 12 o'clock mark, thank you for that. Sorry we're a little late. But what is your favourite benchmark? And then we can pick that up on Friday on the surgery. Thanks, Marie. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it. So let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now this bit is for the parents, guardians and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.